Hey everyone! Before we begin today, we want to thank Inca, who upgraded their pledge on Patreon, as well as welcome our newest patrons, Alex, Shannon, Nairi, Emily, Kat, and my high school English teacher, who I still call Mr. Austin, even though I've been out of high school for almost a decade. So if you want to be awesome like Mr. Austin and get access to our notes, outtakes, and more, head on over to patreon.com/pod and prejudice. And now enjoy part 3 of our discussion of the 2008 miniseries of Sense and Sensibility with our guests, Mel and Mike.
So cut to the next day.
Cut to them grilling Sir John about what kind of man Willoughby is, and poor John just doesn't know what they're talking about.
This was honestly such like a forgive me, such like a stereotypical boy thing where you're like, yeah, he's cool. He's a chill hang. And she's like, what's his soul like? And he's like, he's a great dog.
I can confirm I have done this. I have absolutely. People have asked me about like someone I know, and I'm like, oh, he's cool.
And I'm like, but what's his soul like? Would you trust him? And you're like, oh.
He's got cool hair. He's got a cool haircut. I know that.
But I relate to judging someone by their dog.
Although I don't like, I know that a female dog is called a bitch, but every time that line is said, and it's been in the first adaptation we watched, it was in the book, he's got this sweetest little bitch of a pointer. I'm like, what?
Everyone gets psyched to use the word bitch in a context that's not problematic, I suppose.
For sure. So Mrs. Dashwood then asks if he's married, and John is like, oh, I see. You're gonna set your cap at him now and never think of poor Brandon again. And I remembered that in the book, Marianne was like, I'm not setting my cap at anyone. I'm an independent woman, and like fights back against it. And in this, she just kind of smiles and is like, I guess. And this was one moment where I like was thinking about how they're overall more patient with Sir John and Mrs. Jennings. Like they just kind of are like, sure, whatever, than they are in the book. Then cut to Margaret looking out the window with her little fish, which also props to her for keeping this goldfish alive for so long. And she sees Willoughby's coming and she's like, here comes Willoughby. And Willoughby comes in and he says, how's the invalid?
Oh, is that a direct line?
That's a direct pull from the 1995.
I breezed past another few direct things from the 1995. Like, for example, the walk in which Marion and Margaret go and meet Willoughby is like, that's not her avoiding Brandon in the books. That's just a walk.
Was it her avoiding Brandon in the 95?
Yes.
Oh.
There's a lot of them. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but I do think that the 95 is so iconic that some of the imagery and some of the plot moving forward is just impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
And, justice for Margaret.
Justice for Margaret.
Justice for Meg.
Justice for Meg. Meg. Willoughby has brought Marianne wild strawberries, and Marianne's like, I love wild strawberries. And he's like, I thought you might. And Mrs. Dashwood is like, Meg, let's get out of here, and like brings Margaret away, which is weird because you would think she's trying to give them some space, but then she and Eleanor still sit there and they just have kicked Margaret out.
I think they're chaperoning, whereas Margaret was like looking to be involved.
Oh, another instance in which we know that he's bad because we don't let Margaret be involved in his relationship.
Yep.
Then Willoughby and Marianne bond over poetry, and then we hear that Colonel Brandon is coming, and Eleanor kind of like, she doesn't roll her eyes, but she looks a little bit like, oh dear, here we go, because Marianne is like sitting on the couch, unable to move, and Willoughby's there, and it's all very awkward. And then Colonel Brandon comes in, and Willoughby hides behind Mrs. Dashwood. He like makes himself invisible.
He tries.
However, they're like, oh, Colonel Brandon, do you know Mr. Willoughby? And she like turns around and lets him be visible. And then it's like
the drama.
The waves that were crashing.
The music got really intense.
Oh my God.
And they have a moment, and everyone sees Willoughby and Brandon having a moment. And then Brandon looks at Willoughby, and then he looks at Marianne, and you see it just like dawning on his face what's happening. And the resignation there of like, oh, fuck.
And he looked at me.
And I looked at him.
Yeah, and I think there's also it's very Wickham and Darcy
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of Pride and Prejudice too,
Mm-hmm. Very much.
where everyone's just like, "Ooh, ooh, what is this? What is this? What is this?" But apparently in this, everyone just ignores it.
Well, after Brandon is like, okay, well, I came to see if Marianne was okay, and she is, so I'm leaving. He leaves, and then Mrs. Dashwood goes, remarkable, or like, what does she say? I think remarkable, and then Willoughby goes, yes, well, he is a remarkable man, and it's like, dun dun dun.
And no one asks.
No one asks, but it's like very much, and it's very over the top. And it's weird that no one says anything because they're both staring at each other so intensely. And then Brandon goes out back to his horse, and the camera just like zooms in on his face with this intense music swelling and the wind whipping his hair in the breeze. And then it's like waves crashing on rocks.
Cut to little Mummy getting ready. This is the scene where Marianne is complaining that she has nothing to wear for Willoughby, and everyone's like, he's obsessed with you. He doesn't give a shit what you wear. And so she compromises wearing an old faded dress with Eleanor's yellow gloves.
So Marianne has her hair down,
Mhm.
and as a self-identifying curly girl, I just wanted to say that I don't know what the curly girl method was back in the Regency era, but whatever it was, Marianne was doing it. So I don't know if she plopped, I don't know if she squished to condish, I don't know if she scrunched out the crunch, but girl had the curls going on, and I just wanted to say respect. That's it.
Nice. I actually, that would be another thing that we could ask a costumer who knows things about the time period. Like, actually, would her hair have been that good?
Well, I mean, I think the most hair accurate of the Jane Austen adaptations we've seen so far is the 1995 Pride and Prejudice, which is those like ringlets that come down, and they show them making them. I think in the movie, I think it's like ribbon based.
Do we know how they got the bagel bangs?
Bagel bangs.
Bagel bangs on Fanny, because I would love to know that secret.
Big
That's
lines.
definitely pinned.
They just used some pig fat and they like swirled it onto her head.
Okay, moving on.
Moving
Delicious,
on.
delicious.
Yes. And so we're going to a dance. Now, I don't remember, is this like a ball or is this just a party at the house?
This is an added scene.
It's not in the book. I didn't think so, but I needed to clarify because I was like, I thought they didn't start going to balls until London.
No, they don't have enough people for a ball in the country. I don't think. But either way, they could have gone to balls together and danced together. But if so, it was like in the montage of Willoughby and Marianne spending a lot of time together and didn't like warrant a mention in the book.
Mm-hmm. So here it's a full blown party and there's dancing and Marianne and Willoughby are very obviously just like dancing together and Brandon's watching them, and then he goes up to Willoughby and he's like, a word in private, and the two of them go into the hallway and Brandon asks Willoughby what his intentions with Marianne are, and Willoughby gets pissed and he's like, oh, is she under your protection? Which is a low blow.
Yes, it is a low blow. And also just like he should know better. Like, Colonel Brendan's an important enough man that you don't really want to piss him off.
Yeah, but Willoughby's a dick.
He is a dick. This is where it becomes, like, unquestionable that, like, you do not root for Willoughby here.
Right. Well, the only thing is knowing what I know. So Willoughby goes in and he's like, he says, what are your intentions with her? And Brandon's like, whatever they are, they're honorable. And Willoughby's like, I can't help it if Marianne likes me more. We are more compatible. We're closer in age. We're closer in temperament. And yes, my intentions are honorable. And now I'm going to walk away. And like, yes, he's a douchebag and I don't root for him. But knowing what I know and knowing that his intentions kind of actually are honorable, weirdly enough, it keeps that complexity in their characters.
So I don't want to go too far into this, but I do think that the way this adaptation is positioned, as opposed to the 95, is much more Willoughby centric. And I think that's an interesting way to frame the story, but it does create more complexity of character on Willoughby, and having Brandon know he's a villain early on and giving us those tendrils does give Willoughby a little bit more of an important place in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this does seem it does seem more like Brandon Willoughby focused than it is Edward focused.
Yeah, not so much Dan Stevens.
Yeah, but we don't know yet. I mean, Dan Stevens might feature more heavily in part 2.
He might.
Sure.
We're talking about like really this first part.
Yeah,
So far.
totally.
Because like think of like the first half of the 95 version, it was like so much Hugh Grant just flopping around and being nice to Margaret.
We got like an Edward montage in this instead.
Exactly.
Yeah. So later that night, Marianne and Eleanor are in their room, and Eleanor is telling Marianne that she's being too open with her feelings. And Marianne is like, well, you should be more open with yours. And Eleanor is like, it's not going to do me any good to lie sobbing and crying his name. And she doesn't want to hope for something that may never happen.
Is this where she says, would you rather me sit silent? Wait, here's the quote. I loved this line. I don't know if this is where it happens. So if it is, just kill me, I guess.
It
She
is.
says, would you rather me sit silently and talk of weather and roads? It's something like that. I wrote
Yes.
it down like after the fact because I couldn't stop thinking about it. I just like the phrasing of that of like, yeah, I guess that's like a good way to put like small talk is like, yeah, just talk about the weather, talk about roads instead of talking about real things.
Yes. Then when Eleanor's like, I'm not going to hope for that, Marianne's like, let me hope for you. And it's kind of nice because we talked about their friendship being more cute in this than it is in the 95. And I like that a lot.
There's a lot more understanding between the two of them in this one.
Then the next day, we cut to Eleanor looking longingly at the sea, and she's looking at her little book that she got from Edward and looking sad about it when we hear Marianne screaming her name. And I'm surprised she doesn't look more concerned than she does.
Nope, but she gets concerned soon enough when there's a horse
Yeah.
on the property. And I'm thrilled that this made it into this adaptation. Because this part is ridiculous. Not only because the horse is canonically named Queen Mab,
Mm-hmm.
which is ludicrous. I mean, we've discussed this before, but like that is like naming a horse Elphaba if you're a theater nerd. Not even actually. It's like naming your horse Nessa because you're like the cool kind of theater nerd who doesn't use the most obvious characters.
Right. For those of you who might not be familiar with Shakespeare,
She says, staring me directly in the eyes.
Queen Mab is a reference to
Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet, who like, you're not naming your horse Romeo or Juliet.
No, Queen Mab is a spirit in a speech from Mercutio, a soliloquy talking about sleep. So it's like a very niche Shakespeare reference from the least niche Shakespeare play.
Wow.
Yeah. So we meet Queen Mab, and Eleanor's like, that's very generous of you, but Marianne cannot accept. And Marianne's like, what do you mean? And Eleanor's like, for reasons both of practicality and propriety. I really do like this Eleanor because she has the face down of just complete, what's the word when you're surprised, but you're not aghast. Fuck, there's a word. I can't think of it.
She's got a great poker face, but one that simultaneously shows that underneath the poker face, she is shocked.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the opposite. Like she's got the look of like she's been hit with something she simply cannot believe, but she's also so done. So she's
Are
like,
you looking for disbelief?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I'm gonna keep thinking about this word, and I think when I'm not on the spot, then I'll be able to get it. But it's something.
You're just gonna inject it later.
Yeah, no, it's okay. The listeners can know that I don't speak English. But she just looks completely, yeah, maybe disbelief, but she's just like, oh my God, like when her mom brought in the floor plans of those homes that they simply cannot afford. And now when Marianne is like, look at this beautiful horse, she's like, are you actually kidding me? But trying.
Exasperation?
Yes.
She's exasperated.
She's exasperated. She's like, what, Marianne? But she does have a good poker face where she's like, Willoughby, this is very nice of you. But, and then she's like looking at Marianne, like trying to keep smiling. But she's like, what are you doing? We can't afford this horse. And they go inside and Marianne is like, this is ridiculous. And Mrs. Dashwood's like, yeah, you're being a little harsh, Eleanor. Can't we cut back somewhere else? And Eleanor is about to snap. She's like, no, we can't cut back on somewhere else. We're already cutting back on everything. We can barely afford to eat. Like, what are you talking about? We're going to get a horse. And then Willoughby comes in and he's like, no, you're right. I put you in an awkward situation. Marianne, you can have the horse when you can come claim it. I will keep it until then.
And then Mrs. Dashwood dramatically covers her mouth with her hand. I love this moment too. She's like, oh, I don't know. It was just a good moment for me.
Because he basically says, you can have this horse when you leave Barton, which implies you can have this horse when I marry you. This is the clearest implication
Mhm.
of anything, is the him basically being like, don't worry, don't have to accept the horse right now. You can have it later. And what is later?
It reminds me of those like Honda commercials around like the holidays when like the husband buys like a new car, right? And the wife gets like all weepy. But, like, when you actually think about it, it's like, wait, you made this huge financial investment without her input? Like, that seems like a really crappy decision.
Like Jim and Pam on The Office.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
phenomenal couple. Love them so much. Would never say that they're a bad match. However, in hindsight, Jim buying a house without telling Pam is pretty fucked up.
But she was mad at him. She was mad at him when he did that.
No, not in the moment. She was like, I love this. You bought me a house. And then later she's like, in hindsight, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I guess it's been a minute since I've watched it. So I just I can't imagine not being angry at someone for buying a house without telling me.
No, everyone tells Jim that she's going to be angry. And then he shows her the house and she's like, I love it. You bought me a house. And it's like, but also he took on a mortgage
Right.
without telling you.
Right. Yes. And she was, yeah, you're right. She was like surprised that she liked it.
I mean, yeah, it's also a really hideous house. But anyway, this is what Willoughby's doing. But here it's like it's more like it's like a guy buying you something and saying like, I'm gonna keep it at my place for you. And when you come to be with me here, then you can have it all the time.
It's like when Mel got me a toothbrush.
I was thinking it was more like when we were talking about Mike moving in, and I was like, why don't you just leave your PS4 here?
Oh yeah.
If I were not intending to offer him to move in with me, it would suck for me to be like, hey, just have your PS4 here.
Right.
It's how she drew me in.
Yeah.
She knew what she was doing. It was very
Once the
strategic.
PS4 was here, he basically lived here anyway.
That's really how it is.
That's how it goes. It's a nice toothbrush, so
So back to this though. We cut to Brandon and John shooting birds, and John is talking about how Willoughby's a pretty good shot, and Brandon's like, yeah, well, Willoughby's good at everything. And John is like, oh, like, is this because of Marianne? It's okay, dude. Hold out. They're young. They're gonna get sick of each other really fast, and then you'll still be here. And it's actually like not bad advice on John's part, but it's cute. Their friendship is cute because John is just like the ultimate hype man because he doesn't process anything that's happening. So he's like always like, everything's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my note here says that Colonel Brandon looks like Liam Neeson. Now that that is a compliment.
That is a compliment and accurate. Not Piers Morgan. Really, I was still reeling from that one personally. But
Yeah, Becca's done with you.
we're at the point where John's like, you could always go for Eleanor, and then Brandon's like, huh.
Yes, which brings me to a very important point that this adaptation is leaning in to the you could always go for Eleanor, and I am thrilled. I could not be happier to see him saying you could always go for Eleanor, Brandon looking pensive, and then cut to Eleanor looking beautiful on the seaside picking shells, because yes, we do need to lean into this. It's something that needs to be explored, and I can't wait to see how far they'll take it.
I will neither confirm nor deny.
Then
oh no.
then we get to everyone's least favorite moment,
No.
which is Willoughby and Marianne sitting in the kitchen.
and Margaret. Let's not forget she is very much present for this moment.
Which is just disturbing for so many reasons.
It's
Ooh.
so creepy. He's like sitting there, and Marianne's like, no. And he's like, please let me. And it's very sexual. And she's like, Willoughby, you don't have scissors, which is very much like, Willoughby, you don't have a condom. And he's like, I brought one especially for this purpose. And she's like, what? And he takes out the scissors and then snips off a lock of her hair.
But doesn't just do so. He does so like he is like gently like approaching the clitoris. He's like and she acts like that too. She's like, she gets this look on her face where she's like,
Margaret also looks like she saw a ghost in this moment.
yeah. And frankly, Margaret's just disturbed. And then Willoughby does this creepy thing where he looks over at Margaret and he just goes, shh.
Yep.
Like you saw nothing. It's just all very, very, very bad.
It really, and I think it's very deliberately supposed to read that way. I think it's supposed to read like they're having sex in front of Margaret, which is weird.
Yeah, super weird. But at the same time, it lays this out more explicitly that he is bad news. Because if they weren't doing anything wrong, he wouldn't have to say, shh.
Yes. So then we go to like a storm at night, and Margaret crawls into bed with Eleanor, which is very sweet.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, do you like it here? And Eleanor's like, it's fine. Yeah, why not? And Margaret's like, I miss Norland. And Eleanor's like, We all miss Norland, but just think, tomorrow we're going to a picnic at Brandon's estate, and he has peaches and strawberries growing in his greenhouses.
Yet again, another thing they pulled right from the 95. Instead of going to Brandon's friend, we're going to Delaford.
Which, to be fair, it never made sense for them to be going to Brandon's friend's house.
It was needlessly complicated, Jane Austen. But anyway, we digress.
We digress. So the next day we are prepping for said picnic at Delaford when a horse approaches and they're like, "Where's Brandon?" And he's there and he gets a note and he's like, "I've got to go right now." And it's much less dramatic than it was in the 95 because no one can ever do impossible, imperative quite the same way. But he does have to go.
Imperative.
Turn to page 394.
Yeah, it's weird that he snuck that into that scene, but I thought it worked.
Yeah. So
I got Molly.
that was good. Good job.
Thank you.
But this next part is like, this Willoughby is just so terrible because immediately he's like, Brandon sucks. He doesn't like a good time. Now, I do think that this movie, I said this already, but in the book, it's left up to interpretation to the audience who, like, whether or not Brandon and Willoughby already know each other and whether or not Brandon knows that Willoughby fucked his ward. It makes sense that Willoughby would be such a, like, talking shit about Brandon so much.
A douche kebab.
A douche kebab is the word I was looking for. Thank you. I was, like, struggling to find it, but that was it. It makes sense that he would be such a douche kebab towards Brandon behind his back if he and Brandon had a negative history. It didn't really make sense that he just didn't like the whole thing about like he wished rain or he told me it was going to rain when I wanted sunshine and he didn't like my horse or like what, like all of those reasons were silly.
I think it's pretty explicit that they're rivals for Marianne's affection.
Yeah.
And Willoughby's not stupid to that. But I think it's not clear that he just dislikes him. I think here there's a note of him trying to discredit Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
Because Brandon has some dirt on him.
Right. Yes. And I think that I'm just saying that I think that the book, like this could be taking that directly from the book, which I approve of. So good job to Andrew Davies.
Speaking of taking things directly from the book.
Yes. Speaking of taking things directly from the book, Willoughby's like, well, we can still have a good time. Let's get in our carriages and go around town. And they're like, oh, what a good idea. Should we all go in a line? And Willoughby turns and goes, catch us if you can, Sir John. And then he and Marianne just like ricochet off.
So the parallel before when Marianne took Margaret out for the walk and said, it's just going to be we just need to walk for 2 hours. This was my parallel because when Willoughby takes Marianne out on the horse, Mrs. Jennings says, we won't see them for an hour or two. And I thought this was interesting that you're seeing Marianne willingly avoiding Brandon for like the 2 hour mark and then willingly like escaping with Willoughby for the 2 hour mark. So I just thought that was like an interesting parallel between the two men.
Ooh. Speaking of things that weren't in the book, but that were implied. Was it in the book? It wasn't in the book.
We know they went to Allenham together. And if you remember, in that time period, I forced the question of what happened at Allenham. Mm-hmm. Here, we actually get to see what happens there. And you can see why in the Regency era, it is such a big deal that he took her there alone.
Yeah, and I felt that here. Because, so they go to Allenham, and they're walking around, and while nothing happens...
Something does happen. They kiss.
They kiss. Yeah, you're right.
Is that something happening?
In this time period, yes. But, so, well, before we get there, though, they're walking around the house, and they're like, oh, it's like Sleeping Beauty's house waiting to be awakened. And Marianne finds this scarf, and she, like, wraps it around herself.
Mm-hmm. Did you notice how much it looked like a veil?
Yes, I noticed that, too. That's what I thought it was at first, and then when she put it around her shoulders, I was like, oh, okay.
They want you for a second to think it's a bridal veil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then they go upstairs
and hands on the banister.
Their hands are like almost touching, but not quite. And they go up and they kiss. And then they break apart. And Willoughby says, Marianne, I think I should take you home now. So it's like, okay, maybe his intentions were honorable.
Once again, I mean, okay, he really crossed a line taking her to Allenham, and you certainly cross a line with a woman in the Regency era if you kiss her without getting engaged to her. That would ruin Marianne's honor.
It already almost does.
Yeah, but you can see him so tempted to take it too far.
Yeah.
Like, he's already over the line, but he could really take it even farther. He could really ruin her. And he decides not to. And again, this points to this adaptation caring about giving us the like different colors and complexities to Willoughby's character because he's a villain, and it goes to show he's a villain because he kisses her.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you can see the care he has for her in this moment.
Yeah, and the trust in her eyes too, where she was like totally there with him.
The withheld passion, the knowledge that like, oh, he loves her.
Mhm.
And then we cut to dinner, and Mike made the observation.
Oh, yeah. Like this is like another like Jane Austen trope. Like as much as like the like quick cleaning when like a bachelor is coming, like there's also just so much drama when there's food in front of people.
Soup specifically.
It's always
Yeah.
soup.
It's always soup. It's always soup. Or in like Pride and Prejudice, it was like the potatoes, right? Like there's this like very food centric motif when it comes to like sussing out the drama while eating food.
Mhm.
And it seems to only happen in like the film adaptations.
It's yeah, because it's so etiquette laden and
Mhm.
it's so polite and silent. And then when people do start talking, it gets very snippy very quickly.
And then like someone says something like awkward and they all sip the soup
their
at
soup.
the same time.
And then like I don't remember, it might have been John who was just like shoveling the soup into his mouth. He was like, this is too much for me.
My favorite moment of that entire interaction. So fans, listeners, if you will, we cut to a dining scene where they're all there. Oh, we did skip that everyone's worried about Marianne and Willoughby.
They think they're dead.
Yeah, they think they're dead, and then they come back.
It's very Gilmore Girls, a la Rory and Dean, away for a night, and
When they fall asleep at Miss Patty's, and
we
everyone's
fell
like,
asleep.
they're dead.
Yeah, there was a lot of panic involved. Everyone was calling the neighbors. Anyway.
Yes, exactly like that. And then they go to dinner, and Mrs. Jennings is like, I know you went to Allenham. And Willoughby's like, so what? And Mrs. Jennings is like, yeah, Marianne must like her new house. Wink.
Wink. And you realize in this moment that like they were gone for a long time. They could have been having sex, which they weren't, but like it is left up to interpretation in the book. So like here we see that they didn't, but they could have.
I mean, the difference here is that like when you're alone with a man in this time period, it's really dangerous to your reputation. And I think the point is that like no one knows what happened in that time period.
Yeah.
In those 2 hours. And the point is that you don't know. There's no chaperone. And the implication or the possibility itself is enough to cause damage to a reputation.
Yeah. So after this dinner scene, we get Eleanor and Marianne later on fighting about it. And Marianne is like, I don't want you to disapprove of me. I don't care what they all think, but I don't want you to disapprove of me. And Eleanor is like, I just disapprove of your conduct. And Marianne eventually says that, yeah, it might have been misjudged, but I do love him. Side note, I wanted to say Eleanor has her like paintings and sketches up on her wall, and they are gorgeous.
They really lean into how good she is at art here. It's implied in the book, and it's talked about a bit, especially like later on when they meet Mrs. Farrows, but it's here, it's very present in this story.
Then we get Willoughby and Marianne walking down the beach, and Willoughby's reciting poetry, and then they're on a blanket and he's reciting poetry to her, and Mrs. Dashwood and Eleanor are watching them on the blanket, and Mrs. Dashwood's like, I wonder why they didn't tell us that they're engaged. And then Margaret like pops up.
Loose lips Margaret coming through.
And she's like, I know they're engaged because because she gave him a lock of her hair. And Mrs. Dashwood is like, please go tell Marianne to go inside. And Margaret leaves, and she's like, Marianne wouldn't have done that if they're not engaged. That's really intimate.
I mean, we saw it. It was very intimate.
Yeah. And then Willoughby comes over, and he's like, tomorrow, can I have a word with, can I come see you for a private conversation first with Marianne and then with yourself? And Mrs. Dashwood's like, okay. And then she and Eleanor give each other a little look like, ooh.
Things are beginning to grow in the lasagna.
It's
a pretty rotten lasagna at this point.
Yeah. This lasagna is moldy.
This is not a metaphor Mel has heard before. It's okay.
I was just gonna say, does Mel know about this?
I'm just laughing along.
My mother, this is my mother's way of saying like there's something happening between these two people. She'll go, things are beginning to grow in the lasagna, and therefore that has come up a couple times on this show.
I love that. So the next day, we have Mrs. Dashwood, Margaret, and Eleanor like walking through the downs, being like, "Is it almost the time that he said he would be done talking to her yet?" And Margaret's like, "Why do people always ask me to go for walks with them?" And they're like walking back, and then they're like, "Oh, there's Willoughby's horse, so he must be there." And they get into the cottage, and Marianne runs past them, sobbing
Mm.
up the stairs, and they're like, "What's going on?" And Mrs. Dashwood is like, "Oh my God, has she refused you?" And Willoughby is like, "No,
I gotta go.
I'm leaving." Yeah. He's like, bye. And they're like, "What?" And he's like, "I'm leaving. I'm not coming back." And Margaret chases him outside and she's like, "Willoughby, when are you coming back? Marianne will want to know." And he just ignores her and rides away. And they go back inside and Mrs. Dashwood is like trying to figure out, she and Eleanor are talking and she's like, maybe his aunt disapproves of Marianne and is sending him away. But Eleanor's like, "Why wouldn't he just tell us that?" And Mrs. Dashwood is like, "If I were mistress of Norland, my girls wouldn't be treated this way."
Mm.
If I were still mistress of Norland, my girls would never be treated this way. Is so sad.
It's so sad.
And it's very implied through the entire book, but it's said out loud here, and it's devastating.
They've lost everything and nobody thinks of them as like the high class anymore.
Well, it's the economics of dating in Jane Austen. Hello, Graham, the sound effect. Because suddenly they have nothing to offer on marriage other than being beautiful and wonderful. So she feels trapped in this way because these men can kind of mistreat her girls and she can't do anything about it.
right.
Yeah, it's so sad. And then she kind of runs away, and Marianne is like, "Guys, don't worry. I was just overcome for a second. He'll be back soon."
Yeah, she's like, "I'm sure he'll find time to come visit us again." And then we cut to Marianne with her scarf looking out over this little stream. Cue the 10-minute all too well.
And you keep my old scarf from that. I can't
Very
sing it,
first
right?
week.
Copyright? I don't know.
Because it reminds
Yeah. I really wanted Taylor Swift to just come through the background in this moment.
Very close, very close.
Very close.
Instead, BAFTA award-winning score.
Yes.
Which brings us to our standbys. Ooh, these are going to be some long episodes, but we have some good outtakes out of this.
Yes.
So for some of these, Mike and Mel might have to go off of vibes, but it's going to be great. So first of all, favorite line delivery.
If I'm being honest, my favorite line delivery came from earlier in this episode when Becca said, "And that's not even to talk of the gnomes."
I meant in the movie.
Yeah, no, I know what you meant. Okay. All right, my favorite line delivery. Yeah. Okay, let me see what I got here. I think I liked. Okay, I think my favorite line delivery in the movie was Fanny's exit of "things to do, things to do." That one really it tickled me. I liked that one.
Fabulous choice.
I think for me, and this is just going right off the top of my head because I did not prepare for this question at all. But I think it's gonna have to go to my guy, David Morrissey. His line delivery when he's talking about Marianne's piano playing, and he's just very much like, I noticed in the score it was supposed to be whatever it was, like, and you played it allegro.
Yeah.
Just it's very, as a clumsy man who is not always good with his words, especially in the presence of pretty people, I sympathize with that, and I think David Morrissey played that very well.
Aww.
Mine is going to be very end of the episode. If I were still mistress of Norland, my girls would never be treated this way.
Nice.
Like, it's so sad.
So sad.
And mine is going to be, I think I'm going to give it to Dan Stevens, contrary to well, actually, no, not contrary to anything. I think I'm going to give it to Dan Stevens saying, "Quiet country parish it is then."
Very sexy.
Yeah.
My runner-up to this was a Dan Stevens line where he's like saying goodbye to her and he goes, your friendship.
I was also thinking about that when he was like, "And your friendship has been very important to me too."
It's like he's swallowing "I love you" with every ounce of his being. Ugh, so good. All right, notable changes from the book.
The biggest one is that Brandon and Willoughby, like, even though I literally was just going on about how it could have been in the book, but getting to see Brandon and Willoughby's rivalry so openly is doing wonders for the plot.
Yes. I'm going to give it to Seeing What Happens in Allenham.
Do we get this? Because I mean,
Give it a shot.
I'll give it a shot. No, I'm just gonna piggyback on what Molly said, and just like knowing up front, because I remember even like listening to you guys read the book, like, Molly, you had never read it before, so you were not sure where it was gonna go with Willoughby. Can you trust him? Can you not? Like, it seemed kind of up in the air. Whereas like this film is very much delivering like, no, he is not to be trusted. You're supposed to like Colonel Brandon. You're not supposed to like this guy. This guy's a jerk to Colonel Brandon. They play up like the like billionaire playboy aspect of him a little bit more.
That's his son,
What?
Tony Stark.
Yes.
That is a niche reference for Marvel fans. All right. And Mel?
Oh, sure. Yep.
This one's a movie.
Yeah, this one is a movie, and that one was on pages. Well, I will say, Molly, when it first started, the opening scene, Molly was like, "This one's sexy because it's 2008." I was like, that leads me to believe that the book maybe wasn't as like explicit with that, and so I was eyeing that throughout the film, and the fact that even like kissing unattended is like sexy is very funny to me. But I guess that's for the time period. So yeah, all the sexy stuff, notable difference.
Absolutely thrilling.
That's actually a really good answer.
Thank you. That's what they say on Family Feud, which you haven't seen. Good answer. Good answer, survey says. Okay.
Mel likes game shows.
Sure do.
Okay, so next is least favorite part of this section of the adaptation.
Oh yeah, my immediate answer is the hair cutting scene with Margaret. Just Margaret's face right after that happens. I'm just like, I feel so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's it for me.
It seems so silly, but those horse carriage moments, like with the dramatic music playing, it's too much. It's too again, you go from this very like soft, lovely scene to just like it's like, why are we suddenly in Lord of the Rings? Like, what happened? Why are we
That
being
is what it feels like.
like, why are we being chased all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Like, what? It's just an odd choice, and that's what I'm gonna stick with.
That's a good choice. I am going to go with Mrs. Jennings and John Middleton weirdly having Cockney accents as if they are low class,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the case. They are very wealthy.
I am going to go with there are just a lot of creepy dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that's probably what playing dolls looked like back in this day, but I didn't like it in the opening sequence of Titanic, and I don't like it now.
Good stuff. All right, favorite part.
I like that everyone in this movie is really hot.
Mike said something very similar about this movie,
Yeah.
except John Dashwood.
Except
Honestly, even John Dashwood could get it. Becca and Mike are making identical faces at me right now.
Oh my god! I mean, this is an audio medium, so you cannot see it, but just know that we looked at Molly correctly for that statement. I think for me, it's probably Mrs. Dashwood's performance. I really like this Mrs. Dashwood.
I think I really liked meeting John Middleton. Is he the Harry Potter guy? I just loved his energy. It just felt so like different than everybody else's energy. And I thought he was so cheerful. And I just liked that he was like, company. I love company. Come on over. Let's have fun. I don't know. I think just meeting him was nice.
Originally, I was gonna refer back to my phone background and be like David Morrissey, best part of the new one. But no, I think no, but I actually think that Eleanor Dashwood, the casting, the acting choices that she makes are just they're very subtle, but they bring such a richness to the character. And obviously, this is not to compare to Emma Thompson, who's phenomenal. But having an actress who one is close to the age of the actual character, and just like she's less of a familiar face, at least to me, because I've never seen her in anything before. So you kind of like feel a bit more sorry for her, just because like she's someone new.
And we should note that for the most part, the people who star in this are actually quite unknown. The people we have mentioned that are in other things are for the most part in those other things after filming this. So when this premiered, most of these actors were not really well known.
Though I want to throw it out there that this movie was released the same year as Mamma Mia. So I just want to say that Dominic Cooper was filming this and Mamma Mia simultaneously.
Perfection.
I will say, yeah, Dominic Cooper was the 2008 Ariana DeBose.
Yeah.
She's having her year now where she's just in everything, and I feel like that was his year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like Rachel McAdams in The Notebook and Mean Girls at the same time.
Yeah.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
All right, who wins? I first of all, I do want to echo what Mike said. This Eleanor is fantastic, and I think really a standout in the main cast.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But who wins?
Queen Mab.
I do have an answer for this because I was going to say Dominic Cooper because he brings something very rich to Willoughby, and also this is a much more central Willoughby than the most famous adaptation of this story. So you see us getting a lot more time with him as a character than we have seen on screen before.
I'll go next. Well, if I can change it from a who to a what wins, I have a immediate answer. To me, the winner of this is the Bagel Bangs. It didn't get better than me. It was just the best thing ever.
It was really good.
Just Fanny's hair as a whole, and I guess Fanny wins in my opinion, because of that. Her energy and the hair was just incredible.
Fanny's hair did have as many complexities and different layers as Willoughby's performance. So,
yeah, I agree. Thank you, Becca.
Yeah. You're welcome. Michael?
I don't know. I need a minute to think about who won. I know for sure who lost. The poor child that was cast as Fanny and John's son. That poor child lost. That poor child lost.
We all lost on his behalf, too.
Augustus.
That poor child lost more than he knew in that moment.
yeah.
Mm.
Lost
I'm going to
so
check up on
much.
him and make sure that he's doing okay.
I'm sure he's fine.
I wouldn't bet money on it. But as far as who won, I'm just gonna say the whole cast. Honestly, like it's hard to pick someone from this cast because we've already mentioned the actress who plays Eleanor, who did fantastic. I think David Morrissey is wonderful. Dominic Cooper, did this, and then like you said, was in Mamma Mia that same year. 2 years later, he's in Captain America. Like he's just like having a wonderful career. So like
And our boy Dan Stevens.
I'll even give it to Dan Stevens, the hot sitcom older brother of this movie.
Yes.
It's really just this whole cast feels more connected and just very put together, and it's very, very nice to see.
So on that note, I was going to give it to Kate Rhodes James, who cast this movie.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And
Perfect.
I do want to say everyone who created this movie had such big shoes to fill because the 95 is considered one of the most successful adaptations of a Jane Austen novel of all time. And people didn't think you should adapt Sense and Sensibility again. And the people who worked on this really worked hard to make sure this was something that could stand on its own and separate from the 95 and not be constantly compared to it.
Mhm.
And yeah. Anyway, that concludes this extraordinarily long episode of Pod and Prejudice, which I am looking at now and thinking maybe Molly's gonna give a little voiceover halfway through and be like, so this is actually gonna be a third episode. But in any event, we're gonna get to the second half of this miniseries. And it's going to be fantastic. So get ready for that in 2 weeks. Mel and Mike, thank you so much for joining your really intense girlfriends who love Jane Austen a lot.
We survived, Mike.
Do you want to plug anything before we go?
Sure. So, if you want to follow me on social media, go nuts. My Instagram is at melrubin2. I have a tiny dog who you may or may not have heard his tiny little licks throughout this episode. He's on Instagram as well. Has way more followers than I do, so give him a follow at Milo the Miki, Miki. And if you want to follow along, my hip hop improv group is North Coast. We're on social media at North Coast NYC. So feel free to follow us as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming, Mel.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun and scary.
You did great. You did great.
Thank you.
As for me, you can always hear my wonderful Mike's takes on this podcast. That will continue, I am sure. You can follow me on Instagram, Mike Dowd Comedy, or you can follow. I have a podcast where similar to the structure of this podcast, my friend Janine has never watched Twin Peaks before, so I'm walking her through the wonderful world of Twin Peaks. That's at Welcome to Twin Speaks. Follow us on Instagram through that. Or I'm in another David Lynch inspired podcast. It's a David Lynch inspired Seinfeld reboot. Basically, it's an episode of Seinfeld where weird things happen and pop up, and I have the wonderful pleasure of playing Kramer. You can follow at Sign Peaks. That's SeinPeaks on Instagram, and follow that podcast, The Other Side of Darkness.
Molly, we have talented SOs.
We really do. They're so cool.
Yeah, they're cool. They're cool people. You guys should check out their content. Until next time, though, stay proper.
Does anyone want to take it away? I'm so bad at thinking of these.
And find a significant other who will podcast with you.
Yeah, do that. They're
Yeah.
great.
Pod and Prejudice is edited by Molly Burdick and audio produced by Graham Cook. Our show art is designed by Torrance Brown. Our show is transcribed by SpeechDocs Podcast Transcription. For transcripts and to learn more about our team, check out our website at podandprejudice.com. To keep up with the show, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Pod and Prejudice. If you love what you hear, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/podandprejudice to see how you can support us, or just drop us a rating and a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.